Look, offices aren't fair. Forget that fantasy where promotions only go to the hardest worker. That's not how it works. Offices are political arenas. People use influence, perception, and strategy to get ahead. And here's the part nobody wants to admit. Women often have tools men don't. Charm, femininity, a little bit of sexuality. Whether it's conscious or not, it shapes careers, it tilts power, and it wins battles. So today, I'm going to break down 12 ways women use charm and sexuality in office politics. Not good, not bad, just the truth. Ignore it, and you'll always wonder why someone less qualified leapfrogged ahead of you. 1. The smile that breaks tension. You ever seen it happen? The boardroom is tense, the boss is red in the face, deadlines have been missed, the air is thick with stress. Everyone's holding their breath, waiting to get roasted alive. Then she walks in, doesn't raise her voice, doesn't drop some genius solution. She just flashes one well-timed smile. And suddenly, the whole energy in the room changes. Tension cracks. The aggression melts. People breathe again. The boss softens, the team shifts, and without even saying much, she's already taken control of the moment. That's not just a smile. That's a weapon. Now let's be blunt here. A man can't pull that off. If a man grins during conflict, he looks like a clown. He looks weak, unserious, like he doesn't understand the gravity of the situation. But when a woman does it, it's read completely differently. It's disarming. Charming. It's power. That's the reality nobody wants to admit out loud. Women can use a smile to flip the entire psychological dynamic of a room. And most men never even see it happening. The biology of why it works. There's deep evolutionary psychology behind this. A smile is a universal signal of safety. It says, you're not under threat. For tens of thousands of years, men have been hardwired to lower their guard when a woman smiles. It's biological. Drops cortisol levels. It interrupts the fight-or-flight response. So when a woman smiles in a stressful meeting, she isn't just being nice. She's literally hacking male biology. The men in the room relax without even realizing why. Their aggression drops. Their willingness to listen goes up. And that gives her influence before she's even said a word. The double standard. Here's the harsh truth. Because society reads male and female behavior differently, the same action has opposite results. A man smiles and tension equals weakness, lack of seriousness. A woman smiles and tension equals charm, warmth, leadership. Men don't have access to it. If you're a guy, you can't grin your way through conflict, you'll get steamrolled. But a woman can. And that asymmetry is exactly why you see women pull influence in offices without anyone being able to call it out. A smile is both shield and dagger. Think about it strategically. A smile isn't just friendliness. It's camouflage and it's a blade. As a shield, it makes criticism harder. Try tearing into someone who's smiling warmly at you. It's difficult. You'll unconsciously soften your tone. You'll hold back. That smile has already blunted your attack. As a dagger, it lets her disagree, push back, even challenge authority, but it lands as charming assertiveness instead of aggression. She gets to oppose you without making an enemy out of you. That's chess-level influence. So one expression does two jobs, defense and offense. That's why it's powerful. Real-life example. I know a story of a mid-level banking manager. He admitted one of his female staff wasn't the most technically skilled. She wasn't the hardest worker. But she had this uncanny ability in tense situations. When the boss was raging, she'd smile lightly, almost laugh, and say something like, "We'll figure it out, don't worry." Guess what happened? Over time, the big boss softened towards her. He confided in her. He treated her like a safe presence. She became his go-to, not because of output, but because of the psychological relief she provided. Who do you think got promoted when the opening came up? Not the Excel wizard. not the guy grinding late nights. The one who knew how to use her smile to make the boss feel better. Men don't see it happening. That's the genius of it. Men walk out of the meeting saying things like, "She just has a great vibe," or "She's easy to work with." They don't even consciously realize the smile disarmed them. They just know they trust her more, like her more, want her around more. Meanwhile, the guy sitting in the corner who kept quiet and delivered results? He's invisible. He thought meritocracy would save him. But meritocracy doesn't exist in politics. Influence does. Different smiles. Different effects. Here's where it gets surgical. Not all smiles are the same. Women who know the game vary them like tools. Quick flash smile, used when entering a conversation. Drops defenses instantly. The sustained eye contact smile creates intimacy, makes the receiver feel chosen. The half smile suggests mystery, makes people lean in to figure her out. The recovery smile, after a mistake, it turns embarrassment into charm. Each one shifts the mood differently. And men? They react subconsciously every single time. Why this matters in office politics. Let's zoom out. Office politics is not about who has the best PowerPoint slides. It's about perception. It's about emotional control. Person who can control how people feel in the room is the one who wins. A smile is emotional jujitsu. Takes the tension of others, redirects it, and flips the room in your favor. That's why women who master it rise faster than the grinders who think output is enough. The dark side. Of course, there's a darker layer to this. The smile can also be manipulative. Can hide malice, cover incompetence, or distract from mistakes. The same charm that wins allies can also blind decision-makers to flaws. That's why sometimes you see mediocre performers rise while top performers stagnate. It wasn't about competence, it was about charm. And charm is often distilled into something as simple as a smile. Final word on the smile weapon. So here's the takeaway. A smile in the right moment is not innocent. It's calculated power. Disarms critics, buys forgiveness, and creates allies. Men can't copy this move. They get punished for it. But women get rewarded. That's the asymmetry. That's why in office politics, one smile can achieve what weeks of grinding never will. And if you're sitting there thinking, "That's not fair," you're right. It's not fair. But politics was never about fairness. It's about power. And in the office battlefield, a smile isn't kindness, it's strategy. 2. Tone shift. Let's talk about one of the most underrated weapons in a woman's arsenal. Her voice. Not the words, not the content, not the PowerPoint slide she spent the weekend stressing over. No, the actual tone. Because here's the reality. People, especially men, respond to tone way more than they respond to logic. You can have the most airtight argument in the world, backed by data, charts, and logic that would make Aristotle clap from his grave. But if you deliver it in a shrill, annoying, or monotone voice, nobody's listening. They'll be checking their phones, thinking about lunch, or waiting for you to shut up. But when a woman masters tone, when she learns how to modulate her voice, make it softer, lighter, almost playful, suddenly average points sound clever. Basic statements feel like revelations. And people, especially men, lean in. They start paying attention not because the content changed, but because the delivery activated a primal instinct. This is the part men don't want to admit. We are wired to respond differently to a woman's tone than a man's. That's not politics, that's biology. Men are hardwired to tune into feminine voices. Evolutionary Psychology 101. The voice of a woman meant safety, nurturing, mating potential. Meanwhile, the voice of another man? Competition, aggression, threat. That's why when a man raises his tone, people prepare for conflict. But when a woman softens her tone, people prepare to cooperate. It's unfair? Maybe. But life is unfair. That's the game. And women who know this rule don't waste time wishing the game was different. They play it. Now, here's where the manipulation comes in. A woman doesn't need to dominate a meeting with hard logic to get her way. She doesn't have to fight tooth and nail to push her idea through. She can soften her voice, tilt her head, and say something like, "Maybe we could look at it this way," and suddenly the entire table is nodding. Why? Because the delivery bypasses the defensive, argumentative part of the brain and goes straight to the subconscious. She's not threatening, she's agreeable, she's worth listening to. A guy can stand up and scream in the office, slam the table, try to prove he's right, and he just looks like an angry idiot. A woman lowers her voice, says the same thing with a half smile, and suddenly it's the greatest idea since sliced bread. It's not fair, but it's true. Men want to fight other men, they want to protect women. That's biology. There's an archetypal pattern here. Men are biologically programmed to be responsive to a range of feminine traits, one of which is vocal tonality. A woman who can articulate her position in a manner that is non-threatening but suggestive of cooperation is far more likely to gain acceptance in a group setting than a man trying to do the same thing. 'Cause when men use soft tones, it signals weakness. When women use soft tones, it signals femininity. And femininity is not perceived as weakness, it's perceived as complementarity. This is the trick, gentlemen. Content is irrelevant. Tone is everything. The men in the office think they're debating ideas, but they're not. They're reacting to tone, to cadence, to emotional subtext. Women figured this out long ago, and they exploit it shamelessly. They don't care if their idea is genius or mediocre. If it gets adopted, they win. And 9 times out of 10, they don't win because the idea was brilliant, they win because they pitched it in the right tone of voice. That's the cheat code. And he's right. Think about this. How many times have you seen a woman in your office say something incredibly simple, almost obvious, and the room eats it up? I think we should focus on customer satisfaction. Well, no kidding. That's literally every business ever. But because it was said in that softer, persuasive, non-threatening tone, people act like it's a fresh revelation. Meanwhile, you, the guy who just made the same point 5 minutes earlier in a flat, serious tone, get ignored. Your idea goes nowhere. Why? 'Cause men get judged on logic and authority. Women get judged on delivery and charm. And tone is the bridge between charm and influence. Here's the kicker. The tone shift doesn't just make ideas more palatable, it also creates plausible deniability. If the idea flops, she can always backtrack. "Oh, I was just suggesting, I didn't mean we had to do it." The softness in tone acts as a shield. If it succeeds, she gets the credit. If it fails, she avoids the blame. That's tactical brilliance. Now let's zoom out. What does this mean in the bigger game of office politics? It means that tone is a weapon of asymmetric warfare. Men are stuck fighting head-to-head, arguing, debating, locking horns. Women bypass that battlefield entirely. They don't compete with brute force. They seduce with tone. They get compliance without resistance. And in politics, office or otherwise, the person who avoids open confrontation while still getting their way almost always wins. The lesson here isn't to hate it. The lesson is to recognize it. If you're a man in an office, you need to stop pretending everyone's playing the same game. They're not. Men think the game is about who has the best ideas, the hardest data, the most authority. Women know the game is about perception, emotion, and tone. And guess which side usually wins? The one playing the real game. So next time you're in a meeting and you see a woman lean forward, lower her voice just a touch, and say something that suddenly has everyone nodding along, understand what just happened. It wasn't the content. It wasn't the slide deck. It was the tone shift. And that, gentlemen, is power disguised as softness. 'Cause in office politics, the sharpest weapons are never the loudest. They're the quietest. 3. Playing fragile. The strategic weapon of tears. Here's a brutal truth nobody wants to say out loud. Tears are nuclear weapons in office politics. Not machine guns. Not knives. Nuclear weapons. You drop them and the entire battlefield changes instantly. A woman doesn't even need to cry full on. Can be a single sniffle, a trembling lip, or just a sudden crack in the voice, and boom, men freeze. You can almost see the confusion running through their brains. One second they were ready to push back hard on her proposal, the next second they're sitting there like, wait, oh no, is she crying? Am I the bad guy now? And here's the thing, men have no defense against this. None. 'Cause biology, culture, and psychology all conspire against them. A man tears up in a meeting? People think he's weak, unstable, maybe even unfit for leadership. A woman tears up? People lean in, soften their tone, backtrack on their words. Suddenly, she's not just the woman in the room, she's the vulnerable one, the one who deserves a break. Now don't misunderstand me. Sometimes tears are real. Stress is real. But in office politics, the timing of those tears is everything. There's a difference between breaking down privately in the restroom after a bad day and dropping just enough emotion in the middle of conflict to completely derail opposition. That's not weakness. That's strategy. Let's get into the psychology for a second. Humans are wired to respond to vulnerability. When someone looks fragile, our instincts kick in. Men, especially, are wired to protect women. Thousands of years of evolutionary programming doesn't vanish just because we're in a modern office with fluorescent lights and quarterly reports. You put a man in front of a crying woman, and 9 times out of 10, he'll shift into protector mode. His aggression dissolves. His resistance melts. He goes from debating her point to worrying about her feelings. That's the power of fragility. Takes strength and redirects it. Neutralizes opposition without firing a shot. And women know this, whether consciously or unconsciously. I've seen it in boardrooms. A woman about to lose an argument suddenly slows down, voice cracks, eyes glisten. The guy across the table? He panics. Oh no, did I push too far? Suddenly he's the villain of the story, even if all he did was argue logically. Everyone else in the room is now watching him, not her. He's the aggressor. She's the victim. Game over. Men can't pull it off because when a man cries, it doesn't trigger protection. It triggers disgust. A guy crying at work? People think, this guy can't handle pressure. Why is he falling apart over numbers on a spreadsheet? But a woman crying at work? Suddenly it's, wow, she's under so much pressure, poor thing, maybe we're being too harsh. Same behavior. Different reaction. That's the asymmetry. Well, it's not just manipulation, it's embedded in our psychology. Societies have always been structured to protect women. That's why soldiers die in wars while women and children are evacuated. That's why even in modern dating, men still feel guilty when a woman cries. The perception of fragility commands attention. It bends the moral structure of the group. This isn't an accident, it's a tactic. Women may not sit down and consciously plan, okay, I'll cry at precisely 3:15 p.m. during the budget meeting. But they've learned over time that showing fragility works. They've seen doors open. They've seen conflicts end. They've seen men back down. And once you see that pattern repeat, it becomes part of the playbook. Let me give you a scenario. Imagine a woman in a heated budget discussion. The numbers aren't adding up, her plan has holes, and the finance guy is tearing her logic apart line by line. She knows she's about to lose. Instead of doubling down, she slows down, takes a breath, voice trembles just enough. I just want to make sure the team doesn't suffer because of cuts. That's it. Just a slight crack. Not sobbing, not mascara running. Just enough vulnerability to shift the mood. What happens next? The finance guy who was hammering her suddenly looks like a bully. The boss softens. People around the table murmur things like, yeah, maybe we're being too harsh. The whole energy shifts from logical scrutiny to emotional support. And just like that, she walks away not as the loser of the argument, but as the brave soul who stood her ground under pressure. Now imagine a man trying the same thing. In the same meeting, he says, I I just don't want the team to suffer because of cuts, with a crack in his voice. What happens? Half the people roll their eyes. The other half think, oh God, this guy's unstable. His career just took a nosedive. That's the gender dynamic nobody talks about. Fragility isn't weakness when used deliberately. It's power disguised as weakness. It's judo, not boxing. Instead of meeting force with force, it redirects the opponent's strength against them. Men come in guns blazing with logic and aggression, and fragility makes them shoot themselves in the foot. Now, is it fair? No. But office politics isn't about fairness. It's about outcomes. And playing fragile, when done right, changes outcomes faster than any PowerPoint or policy memo ever will. So men need to understand this dynamic. Not to whine about it, not to complain, but to recognize it. When you see it, you need to stay calm. Don't take the bait. Don't flip into protector mode automatically. Don't back down just because you feel guilty. If the argument was logical, stick to logic. Acknowledge the emotion, but don't let it derail the point. 'Cause the moment you cave, you've lost the frame. Women, on the other hand, will keep using this. And honestly, why wouldn't they? If you had a superpower that worked every time, you'd use it too. That's what playing fragile is, a superpower. Fragility that isn't weakness, it's strategy. So next time you see someone drop tears in a meeting, don't just see a fragile person. See the strategy behind it. 'Cause in the chess game of office politics, sometimes the most powerful move is to look powerless. 4. The wardrobe balance. Clothes matter. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. There's this corporate lie we've all been fed. It's your skills, your hard work, your merit. Sure, skills matter. You need to be competent enough not to get fired. But if you think people in offices are blind, if you think they don't judge you by how you look, then you're living in a fairy tale. Human beings are visual animals. We notice before we analyze. We judge before we think. And women, consciously or unconsciously, understand this better than men. That's why their wardrobe is not just fabric. It's strategy. See, men don't get that luxury. A man has basically 3 outfits in life: shirt and tie, polo and jeans, or hoodie and sneakers. If he tries to get creative in the workplace, he looks like a clown. Too flashy? He's unprofessional. Too plain? He's invisible. It's a narrow box. Women? They've got range. They can play with colors, shapes, textures, subtlety. And if they get it right, it's not just fashion, it's influence. Now, here's the trick. Too plain and she disappears. She becomes background noise in the office. Nobody notices her. She's the wallpaper. And nobody remembers the wallpaper. You walk into a meeting, you see the table, the PowerPoint, the coffee mugs. You don't remember the gray skirt suit in the corner. She's there, but she might as well not be. On the other hand, too much flair, too much look at me, and suddenly she's judged. Becomes gossip. People whisper, why is she dressed like that in the office? Who's she trying to impress? And that judgment can be brutal. Offices are conservative ecosystems. They pretend to be modern, but underneath, they're just Victorian tea rooms with Wi-Fi. Show too much and the claws come out, especially from other women. But that middle ground, that balance, that's where the real power lies. Just sharp enough to look professional, just soft enough to be memorable. Clothes that signal competence but also make her stand out. A perfectly fitted blazer, not boxy but tailored. Color that pops just slightly, not neon, but enough to break the sea of black and navy. Maybe a subtle accessory, a necklace, a scarf, even lipstick that frames the face just right. It says, I'm professional, but I'm not boring. That's influence through presence. People remember the one who stands out, not the one who fades into the beige. In every social hierarchy, attention is currency. You cannot rise if you're unseen. And human beings are wired to notice what interrupts the pattern. A room full of gray suits and one figure with just a splash of red? That's who your eyes will land on. That's who sticks in memory. And memory in office politics is half the battle. People remember you, they talk about you. If they talk about you, you have presence. And presence is power. And women who master this balance, they're not just dressing themselves, they're programming the perception of others. They're scripting how people will remember them. Imagine you're a guy grinding PowerPoints all night, unshaven, caffeine running through your veins. You walk into that boardroom half dead. Suddenly, there's a woman who's put together. Sharp. Balanced. Professional but attractive. She looks like she actually slept. Guess what happens? Half the room wakes up. The energy shifts. You don't even want to admit it, but now you're paying more attention to her point, her pitch, her presentation. That's not meritocracy, that's reality. And I'll say this bluntly, if a woman understands how to use this balance, she has an unfair advantage. Not because she's smarter, not because she's more competent, but because she's leveraging biology and psychology without ever saying a word. It's not just about men reacting, it's about women too. Other women in the office notice. And here's the paradox. They might envy, they might gossip, they might judge, but they also remember. And in the end, being remembered, even with mixed opinions, is more powerful than being ignored completely. Indifference kills careers faster than criticism. So let's cut the nonsense here. Clothes aren't just clothes. In the arena of office politics, their signals, their strategy, they're a silent weapon. A man can't win that game. His uniform is fixed. But a woman? She can tilt the perception of an entire room without saying a single word. That's the wardrobe balance. Not too plain, not too flashy. Not invisible, not scandalous. Just enough edge to make people notice and remember. And in a world where being forgotten is career death, standing out, subtly but powerfully, is one of the smartest plays she can make. Or put more bluntly, clothes don't make the woman, but they damn sure make people pay attention to her. And in the game of office politics, attention is power. 5. The space game. You think seating in the office is random? You think where someone plops themselves down in a meeting has no meaning? Wrong. The smart ones, especially women who know how to play the game, they treat space like a chessboard. Every inch is calculated. Every position has weight. Where she sits, how close she stands, how she leans in, it's not chance. It's strategy. Men don't usually think about this. Guys show up to a meeting, they grab whatever chair is closest to the coffee machine, they're just happy the chair doesn't squeak when they sit down. Women who understand office politics? They know sitting next to the decision maker is worth more than half the words they're going to say in that meeting. Why? 'Cause proximity equals influence. Let me break it down. If you sit across from someone, it sets up a natural opposition. Think about it, it's a negotiation table, a debate setup. You're facing off. Cross means confrontation. But sit next to someone? That's alliance. That's intimacy. That's we're on the same side. Now, women exploit this instinct beautifully. Instead of facing the boss, they sit right beside him. Subtle shift, massive impact. The boss doesn't feel like he's being challenged. Instead, he feels like she's his ally, his supporter. When she makes suggestions, they sound less like demands and more like shared thoughts. That's the game. And don't underestimate physical distance. Standing just a little closer during small talk, leaning in slightly during a conversation, those tiny moves create connection. Men interpret closeness as chemistry, as rapport. It's hardwired into us. If a guy stands too close to another guy, it's awkward. Feels aggressive. But when a woman stands a little closer, it feels like interest, like attention. Men lower their guard instantly. This is why I say meetings aren't always won by arguments, they're won by inches. By how far the chair is from the decision maker, by how close she stands at the coffee machine, by how she positions herself in the group. In terms of dominance hierarchies, animals in the wild are constantly negotiating space. Who sits where, who stands where, who approaches whom, it all matters. Face signals power, and the ones who control it control perception. Women who know this instinctively use it. They won't sit at the edge of the room like some background extra. They'll take the chair near the leader, near the action, where they're noticed. It's part of the feminine instinct to build alliances through subtlety. Men show dominance with direct confrontation. Women do it by closing the gap, by weaving themselves into the circle of influence without making it look like they're competing. They get close, they stay close, and suddenly they're indispensable. We can say something like, "Bro, if you're sitting across from the CEO, battling it out with spreadsheets and PowerPoints while she's sitting right next to him laughing at his stupid golf jokes, you've already lost. Forget your 15-page strategy. She's sitting in the victory seat while you're in the loser's corner." And then you wonder why your idea gets ignored and hers gets approved. It's not the idea, it's the seat. Here's the funny part. Most men in offices don't even notice it's happening. They chalk it up to coincidence. Oh yeah, she just happened to sit there. No, she didn't. She chose it. And if you think choice doesn't matter, try this experiment. Next time you're in a meeting, deliberately sit somewhere else. Watch how different the energy is depending on where you place yourself. You'll see it instantly. Because here's the truth. People aren't just listening to what you say. They're absorbing the nonverbal context of how you say it, where you say it, and from what position in the room you say it. Words are 30% of the communication. Face, tone, presence, that's the other 70%. And women who master the space game are basically bending that 70% in their favor. That 1-inch lean-in makes her sound more convincing. That chair choice makes her suggestion sound like it came from the boss's inner circle. That little step closer in the hallway chat makes her seem more trustworthy. It's like psychological warfare without firing a shot. Men go in swinging logic like a hammer, and she's moving chairs around like a chess master, and by the time you realize what happened, the meeting's over and she's already won. Now let me drop the punchline. Most of you guys are playing checkers while she's playing 4D chess with chairs and body angles. You think the PowerPoint slide deck is going to win the room? She's winning the room by owning the room. And that's why office politics isn't about who's smartest or even who's right. It's about who plays the space better. So next time you walk into a meeting, remember, inches matter. And while you're fumbling around with your laptop cord, she's already positioned herself to be unforgettable. That's the space game. And if you don't learn it, you're not even on the board, you're just another piece being moved around. 6. Targeted attention. You ever notice how one woman in a meeting doesn't need to win the whole room? She doesn't waste energy trying to convince everyone at once. No. She picks one guy. Just one. And then, boom. He's hers. It's almost scary how effective this is. A little eye contact, a small smile, a nod at the right moment. Maybe she laughs lightly when he cracks a joke that wasn't even funny. Suddenly, this man doesn't even realize it, but he's become her unpaid lawyer in the meeting. He starts defending her points. He starts echoing her ideas. He's basically building her army without her ever asking. This is what I call targeted attention. Because here's the truth. People don't think logically in groups. We think socially. And socially, the person who gives us attention, who validates us, who signals, "I see you," that person owns us. That's the way humans are wired. Human beings are status-seeking creatures. We're scanning constantly for signals that we matter, that we're being recognized within the hierarchy. When someone, especially an attractive woman, gives a man that signal, even in the smallest way, his brain lights up like a Christmas tree. Dopamine spike. Instant reward system activation. And suddenly, his behavior shifts to maintain that validation. They don't try to dominate a room by brute force. They don't bulldoze everyone with arguments. They don't need to. They just select one defender, give him a few crumbs of attention, and let him do the heavy lifting. It's efficient. It's feminine. It's politics at its most primal. Bro, she made eye contact with you twice, and now you're ready to die on a hill defending her PowerPoint about budget reallocations? What are you doing? Get a grip. You think she's your teammate? She's not. You're just another soldier in her private army, and you don't even know it. But here's the brutal truth. It works. I've seen this play out in real time. A woman barely speaks in the meeting, but she locks eyes with one guy every time she does. He feels important. He feels chosen. And suddenly, when someone challenges her point, this dude jumps in like Captain America with a shield. He's arguing for her, even harder than she argued for herself. It's genius. Because by giving targeted attention, she doesn't have to fight 10 people. She only has to win one. And that one will fight the other 9 for her. That's leverage. That's strategy. Men, on the other hand, usually spray their attention everywhere. They want to impress the boss, the colleague, the intern, the entire room at once. But in trying to capture everyone, they capture no one. Women play it differently. They focus. They lock in. And that one chosen target becomes the doorway to influence. Think about this in evolutionary terms. For thousands of years, alliances were built not by speeches or arguments, but by loyalty bonds. Tension is the glue of loyalty. A man who feels seen is a man who will fight for you. And in a corporate meeting, that's all it takes to tip the balance. Now, the funniest part? The guy usually doesn't realize it's happening. He walks out of the meeting thinking, "Yeah, I just really agreed with her ideas." No, you didn't. You agreed with her. You agreed with the feeling she gave you, that subtle nod, that soft smile, that sense that you were the most important guy in the room. That's what you were defending, not the numbers on the slide deck. And listen, don't underestimate the subtlety. 'Cause if she tries too hard, it backfires. If she stares too long, if she overlaughs, if it looks like flirting, then people notice and it loses its power. The genius is in making it look natural. A 2-second glance. Quick nod. A small laugh. Just enough to plant the seed without making it obvious. That's real mastery. This is what I mean when I say women play psychological chess while men are swinging checkers pieces like cavemen. A man thinks persuasion is about louder arguments, better logic, more evidence. But humans don't follow logic, we follow signals. And targeted attention is the strongest signal in the book. Here's a brutal example. Imagine 2 employees pitching the same idea. The man comes in with stats, graphs, a 15-minute breakdown. The woman comes in, makes eye contact with the right guy twice, nods when he speaks, gives him one laugh, and sits down. Guess whose idea gets traction? Hers. Not because the idea was better, but because her advocate made sure it sounded better. And let me be clear, this isn't manipulation in the cartoon sense. It's not hypnotism. It's just human psychology. People crave attention. People reward the people who give them attention. Men especially are vulnerable to this because they get so little genuine attention outside of it. One nod feels like water in the desert. That's why I say, selective attention is like flipping a switch in someone's head. Bypasses logic. Bypasses debate. Creates allies silently, invisibly. She doesn't need to beg, she doesn't need to argue. Her ally will do it for her, convinced he came to the conclusion on his own. If you're that guy, sitting in the meeting thinking you're being noble, defending fairness, championing her brilliant perspective, wake up! You're not being noble. You're being farmed. You're basically free PR. You're fighting her battles while she sits back, nods again, and wins without breaking a sweat. So here's the lesson. Influence isn't about broadcasting to everyone. It's about targeting one. Win one person with attention and you win the whole room. That's why women who understand this principle often seem to get further with less effort. It's not magic. It's not luck. It's psychology. It's strategy. And it works every single time. That's the game. That's targeted attention. 7. Keeping some mystery. Let's talk about it. Some women in the office understand something most men never figure out. The less you reveal, the more people want to know. It's counterintuitive because men often think, if I want people to respect me, I need to show them everything. My skills, my background, my hard work, my reasoning. Men overshare. They drop their whole life story, their work history, their favorite football team, their dog's birthday, like they're writing their autobiography during coffee breaks. Meanwhile, the clever woman? She gives you half a smile, a vague answer, and a casual, I'll tell you later. And suddenly people lean in. Curiosity is triggered. Now people are chasing her story instead of ignoring it. It's not about lying. It's about leaving gaps. 'Cause gaps pull people in. Humans are wired to hate unfinished puzzles. If she doesn't reveal everything, people fill in the blanks themselves, and here's the narrative tension is fundamental to human psychology. Our brains crave closure. When something is left unsaid, it nags at us, demanding resolution. That's why cliffhangers in movies work. That's why curiosity drives learning. In the office, when a woman hints at something but doesn't finish the story, she's creating a cliffhanger. And now her coworkers, her bosses, even rivals are paying attention just to see what happens next. Mystery creates value. Abundance makes people careless. Scarcity makes people attentive. A woman who's predictable, who overshares, who's always available, she becomes background noise. But a woman who keeps part of herself hidden, who answers maybe instead of yes or no, who smiles and changes the subject just when you thought you had her figured out, that woman becomes fascinating. She's like a locked box in the middle of the room. Everyone wants to peek inside. Bro, she said, I'll tell you later, and now you're sitting at your desk wondering about her childhood, her dating life, her weekend plans. Meanwhile, you haven't finished your Excel sheet. She's living rent-free in your head, and you don't even realize it. You're playing Minesweeper with your curiosity while she's playing Monopoly with your attention. But this isn't just about men chasing women. Mystery works in professional settings, too. Think about it. The colleague who blurts out every idea the second it comes to mind, people stop listening. The one who reveals just enough to spark interest but holds back the full picture? That person keeps the room hooked. She's got something up her sleeve, people think. And suddenly, her presence carries more weight. And don't confuse mystery with being evasive or flaky. That's not the same thing. Flaky gets annoying. Mystery gets attention. The difference is intention. Mystery is controlled. It's about knowing exactly how much to reveal and when to stop. For example, she's in a meeting. Someone asks, "How did you manage to close that difficult client?" She doesn't give a 10-minute breakdown. She just smiles and says, "Let's just say patience and timing." That's it. Done. The room wants more, but she doesn't give it. And that tiny gap is more powerful than a whole PowerPoint on her strategy. People start thinking she's got some secret magic. They overvalue her because she didn't overshare. Now let me hit you with the psychological reality. People don't fall in love with what they know. They fall in love with what they don't know yet. Curiosity drives desire, whether it's romance, respect, or attention. That's why being a little unpredictable, a little reserved, keeps people invested. Keeps them wondering. Men, on the other hand, often ruin their chances by showing all their cards too early. They say, "Here's my plan, here's my logic, here's my effort." They think transparency equals respect. It doesn't. In politics, whether office politics or state politics, opacity equals power. You hold back. You drip-feed information. You let others chase. And this is why the mysterious woman outshines the predictable man. Not because she works harder or even says more, but because she understands the deeper truth. People value what they can't fully grasp. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine two gifts. One is already open. You see what's inside, nothing surprising, it's nice but predictable. The other is wrapped. Just a box with a ribbon. Which one do you stare at longer? Which one builds anticipation? That's the effect of mystery in human interaction. Now let's land a Tate punchline here. Most guys treat conversations like vomiting contests. They throw up everything at once. Meanwhile, she drops one vague comment like, "Yeah, it was a crazy weekend, I'll tell you about it sometime." And now this dude is spending the next 5 days imagining 100 scenarios. Was she at a party? Was she traveling? Did she meet someone important? Bro, he's obsessed. That's mystery. That's leverage. And she created it with one line. This speaks to the archetype of the unknown feminine. Historically, the unknown represents potential, possibility, even danger. That's why mystery attracts attention. It carries an aura of possibility. Keeps the narrative alive. So in the office, the lesson is simple. Don't be predictable. Don't be fully transparent. Don't reveal every detail. Give just enough to keep people curious, but leave space for imagination. People don't chase certainty, they chase mystery. And here's the kicker. Mystery doesn't just keep others chasing you. Keeps you in control. If you reveal everything, you lose leverage. If you keep something hidden, you dictate the pace. You decide when to reveal more, when to hold back. You stay one step ahead. That's why the women who master mystery walk into a room and instantly feel bigger than life. They may not be the loudest, they may not even talk much, but when they do, everyone listens. 'Cause people are already invested. They want the next piece of the puzzle. That's the game. Keeping some mystery. Reveal just enough, but not everything. Let them chase. Let them wonder. Because as long as they're wondering, they're paying attention. And attention is power. 8. The Whisper Network. Everyone thinks the big decisions get made in the boardroom. The long tables, the projectors, the serious faces. People walk out of those meetings thinking, wow, that's where the power really is. Wrong. The boardroom is theater. It's the stage show. The real game happens in the whispers, the hallway chats, coffee break banter, the bathroom conversations, the side texts. That's where alliances form, where reputations are built, where the actual momentum of power is created. By the time everyone marches into the official meeting, the outcome has already been decided, in private. And women, more than men, are absolute masters of this whisper network. Here's the difference. Men think politics is about loud dominance. Who talks the most, who argues the hardest, who brings the biggest spreadsheet. Women understand politics is about quiet influence. Who you talk to in between meetings. Who you share a laugh with over coffee. Who you confide in when the room isn't watching. For millennia, men have been out on the hunt, competing in obvious external battles. Women, meanwhile, built influence inside the tribe. Gossip, networking, subtle alliances, that's how order was maintained. It's not weakness, it's strategy. Social cohesion happens through communication, not confrontation. That instinct carried into the workplace. This is why so many men are blindsided at work. They show up to the big meeting thinking it's an open contest of ideas. They drop their arguments, their data, their carefully rehearsed points. And then they wonder why nobody's on their side. Because the sides weren't chosen in that room. They were chosen at 10:15 a.m. by the coffee machine when Susan whispered to Karen and Karen whispered to Mark, and suddenly the consensus had already shifted. The meeting was just the formality. Bro, you spent 3 weeks building a PowerPoint with 20 charts. Meanwhile, she spent 3 minutes in the bathroom complimenting someone's new shoes, and now half the office is on her side. You lost before you even plugged in your laptop. This is what I mean. The whisper network is invisible but decisive. Women instinctively know how to operate it. They don't need to stand up in front of everyone and declare their agenda. They slip it into casual talk. They create bonds through small gestures. They plant seeds through offhand comments. By the time the spotlight hits, everyone already feels aligned with her, even if they don't know why. And don't underestimate the psychology of gossip. People pretend to hate it, but gossip is how humans transfer information. It's how trust is built. If she shares a little secret with you, suddenly you feel closer to her. You think you've been given special access. And people fight harder for those they feel close to. That's how she creates loyalty, one whispered conversation at a time. This is why the whisper network is so dangerous to men who ignore it. 'Cause men think power is visible. They think it wears a suit and carries a title. Women know power is invisible. It hides in conversations you weren't part of, in alliances you didn't see forming. You walk into a meeting thinking it's neutral ground. She walks in already knowing the votes are in her pocket. Let me give you a brutal example. Project is up for approval. 3 candidates, equal footing. The guy spends hours prepping his pitch. Another guy polishes his numbers. The woman? She spends the week casually chatting, dropping her vision over lunch, listening to people's frustrations, planting little ideas into conversations. By the time the vote comes, people feel her idea is familiar, like it's already theirs. That's the whisper network at work. It makes her idea feel like consensus, while the men's ideas feel like intrusions. Now, let's bring in some evolutionary biology here. Humans crave belonging. Nobody wants to be the outcast in the tribe. So when whispers build the sense that we're already on her side, people fall in line even if they didn't analyze the details. Feels safer to agree. That's how conformity spreads, quietly, socially, through whispers. And this is why mystery and whispers go hand in hand. A woman doesn't need to over-explain. She drops a hint, shares a laugh, makes someone feel included, and lets curiosity do the rest. People join her side not because she argued better, but because they feel like they're already part of her inner circle. You thought politics was one with IQ. Wrong. It's one with EQ, and she just EQ'd you into irrelevance while you were busy formatting your slides. Now, here's the scary part. The whisper network isn't always malicious. Sometimes it's just survival. Women in male-dominated workplaces build these quiet alliances as defense. It's how they protect themselves. But in the hands of someone strategic, it becomes a weapon. A woman who knows how to wield the network can undermine rivals without ever being seen as aggressive. She doesn't attack you head-on. She just whispers, and suddenly you're out. This is social warfare. Men expect frontal combat. Women wage guerrilla campaigns. By the time you realize you're under attack, the territory's already gone. So what's the lesson here? Simple. Never underestimate the whisper network. The meeting is the performance. The real negotiation happens in the shadows. If you're ignoring the coffee chats, the hallway laughs, the bathroom alliances, you're not even playing the game. And here's the kicker. You can't fight whispers with louder speeches. The only way to counter whispers is to build your own. To understand that power spreads laterally through relationships, not just vertically through titles. The women who get ahead aren't always the smartest or the hardest working. They're the ones who understand that influence isn't public. It's private. It's whispered. That's the game. That's the whisper network. Forget the boardroom, it's already over before you sit down. 9. Compliments that hook. Here's a hard truth about human beings. People are starving for validation. I don't care how confident they act, how many degrees they've got framed on the wall, or how many gym selfies they post. Inside, most people are walking around like half-empty cups just waiting for someone to pour something in. And women who understand this, they use it like a scalpel. The compliment isn't just flattery. It's not random. It's a hook. Think about it. If you tell a guy in the office, "Wow, you're always so good at explaining things clearly," that's not just kindness. That's a contract. It's planting a seed in his brain. She values me. She respects me. And once that seed is planted, the man will bend over backwards to live up to it. He'll explain things for her. He'll defend her in meetings. He'll back her up on projects. Why? 'Cause he wants to keep that validation flowing. When someone compliments you, they're not just describing you, they're shaping who you are. If someone says you're great at staying calm under pressure, suddenly you feel obligated to be that calm person. Compliments don't just stroke egos, they create scripts. And most people are so desperate for a script that they'll play it out for the rest of their careers. Compliments are subtle contracts. The woman says one nice line, and now the man feels like he owes her. Reciprocity kicks in. Humans hate asymmetry. If she gives him value, attention, validation, he feels compelled to give it back. Not in the form of another compliment, but in action. Defending her ideas. Supporting her projects. Voting her way. It's repayment in loyalty points. Bro, she told you you're good at Excel and now you're spending 3 weekends fixing her spreadsheets for free. Congratulations, you've been bought for the price of one compliment. You're basically a loyalty card now. She swiped you once and got unlimited refills. And here's the kicker, most men don't even see it happening. They think the compliment is just nice. They don't realize it's strategic. Because women who understand power don't throw random praise. They target it. They pick the part of your identity that you care about the most. Let me give you an example. A woman doesn't just say, "You're smart." That's too vague. Too generic. Instead, she says, "I like how you break down complex problems into simple explanations." Now it's specific. It's tailored. And it strikes at the man's self-image. He's not just smart anymore. He's uniquely valuable. And once he feels valuable, he'll fight to stay that way in her eyes. That's why the smart compliment is like psychological jujitsu. Instead of pushing against people with arguments, you pull them toward you with validation. And once they're in your orbit, they'll defend you as if it was their own idea. Now, some men use compliments too, but here's the problem. When men compliment women in offices, it often gets read as flirting, as inappropriate as a move. When women compliment men, it lands clean. Doesn't trigger suspicion, it triggers loyalty. That asymmetry gives women a massive advantage in the politics of validation. And don't underestimate the long-term effects. That one compliment you gave in passing, the guy might remember it for months. He'll replay it in his head. He'll think, "She sees something in me." And every time he sees you again, he subconsciously wants to earn another. That's the addiction cycle of compliments. They hook once and then the craving kicks in. Positive reinforcement builds habits faster than punishment. If you criticize someone, they resist. If you compliment them, they repeat. That's why compliments are stronger than criticisms for shaping behavior. They literally rewire motivation. This is why the compliment is more powerful than the argument. Men think persuasion comes from logic. Women know persuasion comes from emotion. Logic might win the point, but compliments win the person. Bro, she told you you're such a good leader, and now you're working unpaid overtime to make her look good. You think you're just being a team player. No, you're her trained lapdog sitting there wagging your tail every time she pats your ego. But here's the part most people miss. Compliments only work if they're rare and strategic. Too many, and it loses its power. If she compliments everyone, it looks fake. But if she compliments sparingly, if she makes it feel earned, then the hook sinks deep. For example, imagine she only compliments you after a big presentation and it's specific. You made that sound so clear. Nobody else could have explained it that well. That feels earned. That feels special. And now you're hooked. You'll fight to keep that compliment true. That's the genius of it. One sentence and she's built a soldier for her cause. A loyal defender. A backer in the shadows. And all it cost her was breath. Meanwhile, the guy who spent weeks preparing logical arguments to persuade the same audience? He gets ignored. 'Cause logic doesn't build loyalty. Compliments do. And that's why the smart compliment is more than kindness. It's currency. It's leverage. It's subtle power. Because here's the truth. Most people in the office don't want more data. They don't want more logic. They want to feel valued. And the woman who knows how to deliver that feeling clean, specific, and rare will have allies everywhere. That's the game. Compliments aren't just words. They're contracts. And people always pay them back with interest. 10. The aura effect. Every office has one. That woman who walks in doesn't say much, maybe doesn't even need to participate actively in the discussion, and yet the room shifts. People notice. Men straighten up, their posture changes, their voices deepen like they're suddenly auditioning for a Batman role. Women glance at her, size her up, and then look away. It's not the clothes, not even the words. It's the aura. Aura is hard to define but easy to recognize. It's that invisible atmosphere someone carries. Some people walk in and you barely notice them. Others walk in and suddenly the oxygen feels different. That's aura. Now let's unpack this from different angles. Aura is the psychological projection of confidence mixed with unpredictability. Human beings are hypersensitive to dominance hierarchies. Who's up, who's down. When someone radiates confidence without even opening their mouth, the brain codes it as, pay attention. This person matters. Aura is nonverbal dominance signaling. Shoulders back, chin up, eyes steady but not desperate. It's knowing you don't have to prove yourself because your presence already proves it. Aura is social power distilled. In any group, there's a hierarchy of influence. Some people claw for attention, others fade into irrelevance. But the one with aura? She doesn't chase, she attracts. Her silence feels like judgment. Her smile feels like a blessing. Men try to win it. Women feel threatened by it. Aura rearranges the battlefield without the person even firing a shot. That's why it's more powerful than arguments, data, or effort. It's leverage without labor. There's always that chick in the office. She walks in, doesn't do shit, and suddenly the whole room is simping. Men are competing to carry her coffee, women are gossiping about her, and she's just standing there like a final boss character in a video game. Aura is like cheat codes. Everyone else is pressing buttons, and she just spawns with max stats. But what actually builds aura? It's not magic. It's a mix of things. 1. Confidence and scarcity. The aura effect works because it's rare. Most people talk too much, seek too much approval, broadcast too much insecurity. Aura is the opposite, restraint. Person who doesn't need to speak every 5 seconds feels more powerful because silence is expensive. Silence forces others to lean in. 2. Controlled mystery. Aura thrives on unanswered questions. Who is she texting? Why doesn't she join the gossip? Why does she smile at some comments but not others? Mystery creates curiosity, and curiosity creates power. 3. Nonverbal dominance. Posture. Movement. Contact. The aura-heavy woman doesn't fidget. She doesn't rush. She moves slowly, deliberately. Humans interpret controlled motion as high status. Desperation fidgets. Power waits. 4. Selective attention. Aura is amplified by scarcity of attention. She gives a compliment, it feels like gold. She laughs at your joke, you replay it in your head for days. Because it's not frequent, it's valuable. This is where men often misunderstand power. They think it's about louder voices, bigger arguments, or more hustle. But aura is about scarcity. The less you need to do, the more others project value onto you. In animal kingdoms, the dominant doesn't need to thrash around constantly. The subordinate does. The dominant one radiates calm confidence because everyone already knows where they stand. Aura is human dominance expressed through calm, charm, and restraint. Now, let's cut back to Tate because he'd roast this perfectly. Listen, the woman with aura doesn't even know where the printer is, but you'll have 5 guys volunteering to show her. She says one sentence in the meeting, and the whole table nods like she's Einstein. Meanwhile, you've got dudes staying up all night preparing a 40-slide PowerPoint nobody even remembers. Aura is unfair. It's like showing up to a fistfight with a tank. But here's what makes it dangerous. Aura destabilizes both men and women. The men, aura triggers competition. Men unconsciously posture around her, trying to look more competent, more valuable, more dominant. They bring out their alpha act, deep voices, strong opinions, unnecessary jokes. They want her attention, even if they don't admit it. Aura bends male behavior. A woman, aura triggers avoidance or subtle sabotage. Women who don't have it feel threatened. They gossip, they undercut, they whisper about her attitude. But deep down, it's not what she does, it's what she represents. She's the one they can't easily ignore. Aura isn't just social, it's political. In offices, people often think decisions are made on logic, spreadsheets, or policy. Wrong. Many decisions tilt because of aura. Who gets backed? Who gets defended? Who gets promoted? The one who tilts the room just by existing. That's the hidden math. Lyra would frame it bluntly. Aura isn't fair, but power never is. People want to believe they earn influence with effort. In reality, half the game is presence. Aura shortcuts the grind. Now, the danger for men is falling into the aura trap. She didn't hypnotize you, bro. You hypnotized yourself. You convinced yourself she's special just because she sits like Cleopatra while you're sweating in your polyester tie. Aura doesn't mean she's smarter. Aura just means you gave her the power. That's the paradox. Aura is real, but it's also projection. It exists because others believe it. Aura-heavy women don't demand power. They attract it by triggering imagination. People fill in the blanks with their own desires, fears, and insecurities. But make no mistake, in office politics, aura wins more wars than logic. The woman with aura doesn't just play the game, she is the game. Everyone else just responds to her gravitational pull. So let's tie this together. Aura is confidence without chatter, mystery without emptiness, attention given sparingly, presence that tilts the dynamic. Aura is the difference between working 60 hours a week hoping your boss notices you, and walking in with one smirk that makes the boss think she's a leader. Stop grinding, start glowing. Aura eats hustle for breakfast. 11. Protector play. One of the oldest, most reliable moves in the female playbook of office politics is what I call the protector play. It's simple. Find the most powerful man in the room and attach yourself to him. Not romantically, though sometimes sure it slides into that, but strategically. Sometimes it's loyalty, sometimes admiration, sometimes just being the one who gets him. Suddenly, she's his go-to person, his confidant, his unofficial right hand. And when he moves up, guess who's moving up right behind him? Exactly. That's career acceleration by association. Now let's slow down and peel back the psychology. Human beings are wired for hierarchies. In every group, there's a dominance ladder. And people naturally try to associate themselves with the strongest individuals in the group because it boosts their survival chances. In evolutionary terms, this was about protection, resources, and stability. In modern terms, it's about job security, promotions, and power. A woman who instinctively aligns herself with the most competent, most dominant male in the room is leveraging this ancient wiring. She's signaling, I am with him, therefore I am safe and valuable. The hierarchy rubs off on her. This is raw strategy. Forget the corporate fluff about mentorship or synergy. What's happening is a simple power exchange. He gets loyalty, admiration, maybe a softer sounding board that makes him feel understood in a cutthroat environment. She gets access. She gets visibility. She gets the shield of his authority. She doesn't need to outfight every other competitor. She just needs to attach herself to the guy swinging the biggest sword. Sufficient politics. Listen, I've seen this play 1,000 times. Some guy is grinding away, working his way up the ladder, and right behind him is this woman, always there, laughing at his jokes, nodding in meetings, making sure his coffee's perfect. Not his wife, not his girlfriend, just his loyal shadow. And guess what? When he gets promoted, she magically ends up in a better position too. She didn't fight the war, she just picked the right soldier to stand behind. That's the hack. She's piggybacking on his ambition like Uber for careers. And here's the thing, this isn't necessarily malicious. It's not even always conscious. Many women fall into this dynamic naturally because it works. Offices reward proximity to power. The one closest to the boss gets seen as trustworthy, valuable, and indispensable, even if she's not actually doing anything unique. Half the battle in corporate life isn't what you do, but who you do it around. Now let's really analyze this. 1. Visibility by proxy. By attaching herself to the powerful man, she inherits his spotlight. When he speaks, she's there. When he gets credit, she's in the picture. When people think of him, they think of her. That's branding by association. 2. Protection from criticism. If anyone takes a shot at her, they're indirectly challenging him. And since he's higher in the hierarchy, most people won't dare. That makes her untouchable in ways pure competence never could. 3. Access to decision-making. The closer you are to power, the more off-the-record conversations you overhear. That inside knowledge becomes an advantage. She knows which way the wind is blowing before the rest of the office catches on. 4. Accelerated advancement. Promotions aren't always about merit, they're often about trust. If the boss trusts her, others will too because nobody wants to oppose the guy at the top. She skips lines by riding his elevator. Men think they're climbing the ladder by themselves, but half the time there's a woman holding onto their coattails like she's on a roller coaster at Disneyland. She doesn't need to buy the ticket, she just sits down and enjoys the ride. And when the ride stops, she's magically at the top floor without ever breaking a sweat. It's like buying Bitcoin in 2010. Just hold on, do nothing, and wait for the value to explode. But let's not sugarcoat it. This play works because men like it. Powerful men are constantly under pressure, constantly under scrutiny. Having a woman in the office who gets them, who shows loyalty, who flatters without being obvious, that's a relief. Feels good. Feels like support. And men reward loyalty almost blindly, especially if it comes in a package that strokes both their ego and their status. The line between loyalty and manipulation is thin. Because while it looks like she's supporting, she's also securing her own advancement. It's not purely altruistic, it's transactional, even if unspoken. And if the man ever falls from power, she may suddenly transfer her loyalty to someone else. That's the risk of the protector play. It's only as stable as the protector himself. It's not love, it's leverage. Don't mistake one for the other. Men think she believes in me. But often what she believes in is the trajectory of your career. And if that trajectory stalls, so will her loyalty. Brutal but true. Now let's put this back into the real office politics lens. For every woman who fights tooth and nail to prove herself, there's another who simply attaches to the right guy and bypasses years of struggle. Is it unfair? Yes. Is it effective? Also yes. That's why it keeps happening. You can grind 60 hours a week making reports, or you can just sit next to the guy in charge and let everyone assume you're important. That's the protector play. And it works so well it makes half the men in the office furious, because deep down they wish they'd thought of it first. 12. The scarcity trick. Scarcity. It's the oldest marketing principle in the world. Limited edition, only 2 left, flash sale. And it works not just in sales, but in relationships, in dating, and yes, in the office. The scarcity trick is when a woman in the workplace hints, just hints, that she might not always be around. Not with drama. Not with ultimatums. Just a soft, casual, almost offhand line. I've been thinking maybe I should see what's out there, or I wonder what opportunities are like at other firms. Boom. Instant panic. Suddenly, her value skyrockets. Suddenly, people who've taken her for granted wake up and realize, wait, we can't lose her. Scarcity creates urgency, and urgency makes managers bend rules, push budgets, and fight to keep her on the team. Humans are wired to overvalue what's rare. Something is always available, we take it for granted. There's even a chance it might disappear, suddenly it becomes precious. This is deeply rooted in evolutionary psychology. When resources were abundant, you could relax. But when they were scarce, survival depended on grabbing and holding on to them. The same mechanism applies to people in social hierarchies. If someone hints they might leave the tribe, the group instinctively rallies to hold them in place, because losing members weakens the group. In modern workplaces, the same reflex happens. The threat of departure triggers fear of loss. And fear of loss is more powerful than the promise of gain. So when a woman casually signals scarcity, she taps into a primal fear. If she leaves, we lose status, stability, and maybe even success. Suddenly, her presence feels indispensable, even if a week ago people didn't fully appreciate her. Let's strip the niceties. This is pure leverage. It's not about competence. It's about timing and perception. She doesn't need to storm into HR demanding a raise. That looks desperate. No, the scarcity trick is subtler. It's the slow drip of doubt. I might not be here forever. That line alone changes the power dynamic. Now management starts thinking, if she goes, who replaces her? How much will it cost to hire and train someone new? What if she joins a competitor? What if morale drops because people liked working with her? Notice, none of this is about her actual output. It's about the fear of disruption. She's not just an employee anymore. She's become an irreplaceable puzzle piece. That's the brilliance of the scarcity trick. It reframes her as more than her role. She becomes symbolic value. This is the office equivalent of a hot girl telling her boyfriend, I might go on Tinder. He goes from laid-back gamer mode to suddenly taking her out to dinner, buying flowers, promising to change. Scarcity turns men into clowns, and it turns managers into yes-men. The woman doesn't even need another offer. She just needs the hint of one. That's the game. Here's how the scarcity trick usually unfolds. 1. The hint. She drops a line, maybe at lunch, maybe in casual conversation with the boss. My friend got an amazing offer from a competitor. Makes you think, right? She doesn't demand. She just plants the seed. 2. The reaction. Word spreads. Suddenly, the boss double-checks her happiness. HR asks if she's okay. Colleagues suddenly treat her with more respect, just in case she really is the one keeping everything together. 3. The scramble. Managers hate risk. Replacing an employee is expensive, messy, and politically dangerous. So they scramble to keep her. More flexibility, a raise, a better project, maybe even a fast-tracked promotion. 4. The win. Without threatening, without begging, she upgrades her position simply by making herself scarce. She's now valued not because she changed her work, but because she changed the perception of her availability. Here's the hard truth. When a man hints he might leave, managers often think, good, let him. We'll replace him with someone cheaper. Men are expected to be disposable workhorses. Their loyalty is assumed, their scarcity ignored. When a woman plays the scarcity trick, though, it lands differently. Why? 'Cause women often bring both competence and a softer social role to the workplace. Relationship glue, informal diplomacy, the one who keeps the vibe balanced. That's much harder to replace. So her scarcity feels heavier. Triggers more urgency. The female employee doesn't just do tasks. She occupies a social niche. If she leaves, you're not just losing a worker, you're losing part of the tribe's cohesion. That's why managers panic more when she hints at leaving. Corporate bosses are like boyfriends. They ignore you until they think they're about to lose you. Then suddenly they're Mr. Romantic. If a guy says he might leave, the boss shrugs. If a girl says she might leave, suddenly HR's throwing money at her like she's a stripper on stage. Because deep down they know men are replaceable, but her? She's got aura, social weight, and influence. They'll bend rules for her. Now, let's not act like this move is risk-free. The scarcity trick is powerful but dangerous. Play it too hard and you look disloyal. Management might start preemptively grooming your replacement. Or worse, they'll call your bluff. Oh, you're thinking of leaving? Okay, good luck out there. Life is built on trust. If you abuse scarcity manipulation, you might win in the short term but lose credibility long term. People might feel played. And once trust is gone, even real scarcity won't save you. That's why the best practitioners of this trick do it sparingly, just enough to create urgency, but not so much that it looks like blackmail. Subtlety is the weapon. The scarcity trick works because humans overvalue rarity. What we think we might lose, we suddenly treasure. Loss aversion is stronger than gain. Managers fear disruption more than they want stability. Scarcity reframes perception. She's no longer an employee. She's the one we can't afford to lose. Scarcity is power. A woman can walk into the office, drop one line, "Maybe I'll see what's out there," and suddenly her boss is sweating harder than an intern on his first day. She hasn't done more work, she hasn't built more skill. She just made herself rare. And in this world, rare beats hardworking every single time. So there it is. Again, this isn't about good or bad. It's not about blaming. It's about reality. Offices aren't fair. They're not designed to be. They're battlefields of influence. And women, whether consciously or not, they know how to play that game. The question is, are you aware enough to see it when it's happening? So, there it is. Again, this isn't about good or bad. It's not about blaming. It's about reality. Offices aren't fair. They're not designed to be. They're battlefields of influence. And women, whether consciously or not, they know how to play that game. The question is, are you aware enough to see it when it's happening? Here's a bonus clip. The fake office mother. Let's talk about one of the sneakiest, deadliest office strategies women use, the fake office mother. Now, when I say mother, I don't mean the sweet old lady baking cookies. I mean the calculated persona, the woman who positions herself as the caretaker of the office, the one everyone confides in, vents to, runs to when they're upset. She's not technically in charge, she's not the manager, she's not even necessarily the best performer, but somehow she's the gravitational pull that keeps the office orbiting around her. This isn't an accident. Chess disguised as knitting. It's strategy hidden inside. Oh honey, how are you doing today? Step 1. She creates warmth. She brings coffee to the stressed guy on a deadline. She remembers birthdays. She tells the junior employee, "Don't worry, everyone struggles at first." In an office where everyone is stressed, cynical, and half dead inside from endless meetings, this kind of maternal touch is oxygen. People breathe easier around her. And when people feel safe around someone, they open up. And here's the kicker, the more they open up, the more power she collects. Information is currency in any corporate structure. Who's miserable, who's about to quit, who's secretly beefing with who, she knows all of it. Not because she hacked the HR database. Not because she's spying. But because she tilted her head, looked concerned, and said, "You can tell me, sweetie." And people do. Every single time. Why does this work? Because she taps into one of the most primal instincts humans have, the search for maternal approval. Most people in the workplace are underappreciated. Their bosses critique them, their colleagues compete with them, and at home they might not even get much validation. But here's this woman, smiling, patient, acting like she cares. Psychologists call this a safe harbor figure. Someone you unconsciously lean on when everything else feels hostile. Men especially are highly vulnerable to this. A guy might not listen to his actual mother, his wife, or his therapist, but office mom tells him he's doing a good job and suddenly he's ready to walk through fire for her. And now comes the power play. Once she's positioned as the mother figure, she has three enormous advantages. 1. Influence without authority. She's not the boss, but when she says, "Maybe we should listen to John's idea," the room pauses. Because she's not seen as competing, she's seen as caring. 2. Untouchability. You can't attack the office mom without looking like a monster. If you push back against her influence, you don't look assertive, you look cruel. Why are you being so harsh? She's just trying to help. That's her shield. 3. Loyalty network. By making people emotionally indebted, she creates allies who don't even realize they're allies. She comforted them during a tough week, so now, unconsciously, they'll back her up in meetings, defend her when she's criticized, and fight for her when promotions are being discussed. Here's the brutal irony: a man can't pull this off. If a guy tries to be the office dad, he looks either creepy or weak. If he brings coffee, people assume he's trying to score points. If he says, "You can talk to me," people assume he's either HR light or a predator. Men simply don't get the benefit of the doubt in the same way. Women, however, can slip into this nurturing archetype effortlessly, and it disarms people completely. Now, don't underestimate the fake office mother. She's not playing checkers, she's playing a decade-long campaign. She's not after immediate power. She's after permanent positioning. The office mom is like the spider in the middle of the web, patient, unmoving, waiting for the strands of loyalty and gossip to connect until one day she realizes she can tug the whole thing in any direction. Promotions? She doesn't even have to fight for them. Other people will advocate for her. Conflict? She doesn't need to raise her voice. Her children in the office will step in to defend her. And if leadership shifts, guess what? She's still valuable. Because she's not just tied to one manager, she's tied to everyone. The CEO may come and go, the department heads may rotate, but she's always the stable, nurturing presence people trust. That's job security on steroids. Of course, there's a sinister side to this. The fake office mother can become manipulative. She knows everyone's secrets. She knows who's insecure. She knows who's desperate for validation. And when she needs leverage, she can pull those strings. Imagine a promotion is up for grabs. She doesn't lobby for it directly. She just drops a few concerns about the other candidate. "I worry about how stressed he's been. I don't know if he's ready for more responsibility." She doesn't even have to attack, just express concern. And suddenly she's positioned as the safe, reliable choice. That's not nurturing. That's ruthless power disguised as kindness. Half the time, the office mom doesn't even like half the people she's taking care of. She's not actually invested in Karen's divorce drama or Jason's anxiety about his performance review. She doesn't care that much. But she knows the more she listens, the more influence she stacks. And that's the real brilliance. It looks like selflessness, but it's the ultimate selfishness. She's building a fortress of power, one there, it's going to be okay at a time. The fake office mother is a paradox. She plays weak to get strong. She plays caring to gain control. She plays selfless to accumulate advantage. And most people never even notice what's happening, until years later when they realize that the woman who was just so nice and caring somehow became the most untouchable person in the company. That's not an accident. That's not coincidence. That's strategy in heels.